Welcome to Horror After Midnight. I'm your host KC, joined tonight by SaWGuY. How you doing tonight, man?
Man, I am doing good. It's that time now. We are in spooky season form. You know why? Because we are talking about Rob Zombie's version of Halloween. Oh man, dude. I was counting down the times off camera. I kept telling you, dude, I can't wait till we talk about zombies. Are you excited for this one?
Oh yeah. This one I actually really enjoyed. I might get a little bit of hate for that, but a lot of people hate this film. It's got a lot of people when it comes to like remakes, they always like for some reason want to say like it wasn't like the original or whatever. But then if they copy the original, they hate on it too. So no matter what he would have done, it would have got some hate one way or the other.
Honestly, it's so weird that people have a love-hate relationship with this because I think a lot of the hate comes from the fact that it was zombies' take on it, and it didn't follow John Carpenter's. But before we get into all that, because I know I'm probably getting way ahead, do you want to know the numbers of this?
Oh yeah. The numbers. Of course, Ram Zombie directed it. We already know that. But
I was gonna say it was written and directed and screenplay by Rob Zombie. Yeah, we all know that he did that. Of course, we all know who it starred. Starred Malcolm McDowell. Of course, a lot of people remember him from what was that film? The Clockwork Orange. I was gonna say I know that film. Of course, it stars his wife Sherry Moon Zombie, and this was kind of the start where he was just like putting her in everything.
yeah,
Interesting take on this, but we'll come back to it. It was Tyler Maine who played Michael Myers in this, which he was good, but I'll get back to him when we talk about this episode. He had a new actor, Scout Taylor Compton, and she was playing Lori, which was kind of a little bit different, kind of controversy at the time. The other names that are kind of shocker on there too is Brad Dourif, the voice of Chucky, and Daniel Harris, which is kind of cool because she came back into the Halloween series, and
yeah.
William Forsythe. So basically, the Devil's Rejects crew was in this. But I mean, that's Rob Zombie. You had to expect that. Um, Tyler Bates did the music. Tyler Bates is really good at, and he's done all the like soundtracks and stuff for Rob Zombie. So this also had a badass soundtrack. As far as release date, the runtime, budgets, and all that stuff, this was, of course, released August 31st of 2007. One of the best years of horror films, 2007, right in time for spooky season at that time. Had a budget of $15 million. Imagine that, 15 million. That's a spit in the bucket today. And the box office it took home was $80.5 million. So it made a shit ton of money back.
Yeah, making that much money, that's just crazy with only a $15 million budget. And then
Right?
and then young Michael, I always say his name wrong, but he goes by Great Dave now, does independent rap. He did an amazing job as a kid actor in this movie.
Oh yeah, dude. I don't know if Rob Zombie was going based on acting as he was looking. Like he was a crazy looking kid that you could see could pull off to be Michael Myers back in the day. But I honestly love what Rob Zombie did on this because the difference between Zombie's version versus Carpenter is that Carpenter played off of the mystery. You can't kill the boogeyman, and don't give him a backstory. He's just crazy naturally. This actually explained why Michael went insane in a sense, because he was one of those young kids that was just killing animals in the beginning. He was a weirdo kid that his sister Judith was also kind of fucking around, like saying he was a like whacking off or whatever. He had a
Yeah,
stepdad who treated him like shit. His mom was a go-go dancer, or she worked at a strip club or something, and he was just fucked around a lot. And then, I liked the scene how it showed how he was in school and these bullies were fucking with him. And it was funny because one of the kids fucking with him was the kid from Spy Kids, the redhead kid. And I like how
yeah.
they were fighting in the bathroom, and the principal was like trying to get him to stop. And then he's like, fuck you. He goes, fuck me? No, kid, come here.
All
that,
right.
yeah, I just I couldn't. And then I thought one of the best scenes was is that when he was fucking with him, saying, talking about his mom and being a whore and all that shit. The fact that he caught him out in the forest and beat the shit out of him with that piece of like big log stick, and he wore it with a mask, and it was cool. It like really showed that Michael had a crazy side, and They never said what happened. He just snapped. And that built into later on with Halloween night, which I don't know. I mean, what'd you think of the origin story? How it slowly did that build up? What'd you think?
I liked it a lot. Learning more about how Michael was as a kid. In the original, like you said, we didn't really have that. This one, you get to see like he comes from like this really messed up family. His mom is like a stripper, and the kids like they're messing with him or whatever, like saying like my old man said for a buck, your mom would rub her tits in my face or whatever. That's not
They're
something
fucking brutal.
you get, especially not Michael.
Oh no.
So yeah, he does really do some damage, and it seems like he just really likes to hurt like weaker people or weaker creatures, um, and doesn't have like any like remorse for like life at all. Um, so it's cool to really like see how he was as a small like young child, and he grows up to this like really massive man that's just unstoppable.
It's just it was rough, man. I mean, that's the thing though with Rob Zombie films. He's gonna make you feel uncomfortable with some scenes. The beginning kind of got me because after all that happened, they show that he goes home. He's trying to, after he beats up the bully, he tries to have trick or treat, but nobody was there to go trick or treating with him because Judith went out with her boyfriend. The
Yeah,
stepdad was an asshole, and I guess this was one of the cool scenes. It was just insane that he taped the stepdad because he had a bad foot. I guess he was in the war or something. Taped him all up and then slit his throat. And it was weird. He had the Myers mask. They never said where he got it from. It was just a random white mask that he put on. Judith, I guess she came home or her boyfriend left or whatever, and then he
well,
just went crazy and just started stabbing her.
one sec. The white mask actually came from the boyfriend of his sister. He puts it on and wants to have sex with her with a white mask on.
That's
That's where that.
right. That's
But then
right.
it's like he goes downstairs to like make him a sandwich or something, and then Michael grabs like an aluminum bat and whacks him in the head so hard he has like this convulsions.
That's right. Honestly, that scene, how he hit him with the bat and you hear the clank, from the bat and he's down. It reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just completely forgot. I watched this film the other day for us, and I completely forgot about that it was the boyfriend's mask, and he was having the convulsions, and he just beat the shit out of him, and just went straight after to Judith. And dude, it was an intense scene, like for Michael Myers and for Rob Zombie. I mean, you know, he had that aspect of doing that because the Devil's Rejects, the part with Priscilla Barnes and all that weird shit that they did in that movie. But the beginning was crazy, and how he got away with that, and just he just snapped into a different person. And afterwards, when he was done, he was just like a normal kid, like, Mom, what happened? It was just, I like that aspect of the story. And what I think was what sucked about it is that later on, you see that he's being visited by his mom, Sherry Moon, and eventually she stops coming. And they show a scene where she's sitting there because she just had a baby, and they named this baby Angel. And you don't find that out till later on, but the baby was there, and instead of like, I don't know, I guess it was too much for her, and then she shot herself in her head in front of the baby. And then it went to
Yeah,
the title scene, Halloween, right? It just
it was a great opening. That part, like it doesn't really, you don't see the baby, but you do hear Angel crying in the background after he shoots herself.
yeah.
Um, and then it's like goes on to like, I guess like 14, 15 years later when Michael's all grown up now and she's like in high school or whatever.
Hmm. It pretty much followed that same formula as the original did, which I thought was pretty cool. Okay, this one was a blend of one and two because the original part two, you don't find out that that's his sister until part two or whatever. The original one was just he was a babysitter killer, and I like the casting of this because Scout Taylor Compton, she looked the part of Lori, but she was one of those annoying preppy girls. And I couldn't get over it. The other actor who played Linda, she was a good like actor in this or a good actress, but at the time of filming, she was like 30 something years old. And Scout Taylor Compton, I think she was like barely 18, 19. So she was more around the character's age. And of course, Daniel Harris, oh, she's a sweetheart. But with Daniel Harris, she was already like in her 30s when she was filming this. And they were all playing like high schoolers.
Here's on them at least.
Yeah, it was a little different. But I mean, I like their scene of how they, get into the whole aspect of how she's this perfect school going girl and there's no issues and it's kind of cool because it tells like a couple different stories with that. Now, depending on what version that you watch of this film, because there's two versions to this film, right?
Yeah, I always watch the unrated.
My boy, there you go. They have two versions for you guys out there that have never seen it, or if you have seen this, I'm not sure if you know. They have an unrated version that came out that was on DVD. That came out after the movie when the movie came on DVD. And then they have the theatrical version. There's a reason why they have an unrated version and theatrical, because unrated, that shit was brutal. If you thought the theatrical one was good, it was, or if you thought that was like over the top, wait till you see the unrated version, and we'll discuss the difference between the two. But with that being said, it's kind of cool. It showed the whole aspect of how they were living the teenage life and stuff like that, and then at the same time, you see Michael. He was being visited by his mom until she killed herself, didn't show up anymore, and then you see Dr. Loomis is like. I love how they kind of did his makeup where he had long hair. They just put a wig on him and then they just took the wig off. It was a little different, but I like the aspect that they showed that Michael was kind of in his own world and he was making masks. I don't know if
Yeah,
you kind of like that was kind of cool. So it showed that he was creative, but it just showed that he was just like getting as I guess you could say the older he got, the crazier he got because he just stopped talking. Once he found out that his mom wasn't coming anymore, he just shut down. So I don't know if you like that backstory to it. What did you think?
yeah. I did like the backstory. The masks I thought were actually kind of cool looking. I really like the orange one they made.
Oh
That
yeah.
very Halloween looking. Um, and then after was it when Dr. Loomis tells him that's like going to be his last day, and basically he's not going to be seeing him anymore or whatever. And they hire some new people that work at the mental hospital, and one of them is like cousins with this other guy that works there or whatever. And for some reason, they decide they're going to try to mess with this new girl that came in, and they take her into Michael's cell or not cell, but
Oh
room. And after being told by Danny Trejo's character not to mess with his things, they start grabbing his mask and putting it on him while they're trying to. I don't know if I can say the word on YouTube, but
doing
trying to force,
things.
yeah, to this girl. Um, basically, Michael gets really mad and ruins their day. uh, basically it's like a bloodbath throughout the whole hospital, and he escapes. And then,
Yeah. That I'll be honest, like the scene that he's describing, that Casey's describing, that is from the unrated version. So the unrated version, it shows how graphic it is. They get that girl who's like she's drugged up, like out of her mind, and like you said, like they did their business right in front of him. And Michael didn't do anything until they started messing with his mask. If you saw the theatrical version, they basically just went in there and they started messing with his stuff because they can't show that for obvious reasons if they show it on TV or whatever. But
uh,
yeah, I guess that's the reason why they had the two different ones. With Danny Trejo, I loved his character, dude. He was this old guy. He was going to retire. He was taking care of Mikey, is what he called him. Mikey, I took care of you. And when they were transporting Michael, he snapped. They showed there was actually some cool cameos, and I think it was in the unrated version. They show Bill Mosley, and they show what's her name, Deborah Black. Um, no, was it Deborah Black? No, it was Mama Firefly from Devil's Rejects, and they showed them as like dressed as police officers. They're like, okay, we're gonna move a patient. Who's the patient? Michael Myers, and he's like, trick or treat. And as they're moving him, that's when Michael was like, he breaks away and he kills him. And then he sees Danny Trejo's character. Danny's like, Okay, we're gonna try and get you back in your room. He's trying to be nice. It was fucked up what he did to him. How he gave him the Chinese water treatment, like dunking his head in the water. I was good to you, Mikey, and then he just beat the shit out of him. It just, it
Yeah,
was.
then what was it that same way that what Stu died in Scream with the TV,
Oh yeah, the
head with the TV. Yeah,
that freaking TV always gets me. Like no. um, it was over the top for Rob Zombie. I got to give him credit because even though we as a society now have seen almost every horror film out there that's available, especially us, we're so desensitized. Because if you think about it, what did they do in the original? He just smacked his hand on a window, took the car, and drove off. This one, he just didn't give a fuck. He was just taking everybody who got in his way. And it led on to like one of the most iconic scenes because I gotta say, as all this is going on, the soundtrack is fire because it has "God of Thunder" by Kiss, the original song. What was the other one? Tom Sawyer by Rush. They start playing that, and we're gonna get into Casey's favorite scene. We were talking about this off camera. Casey, I'm gonna let you have this one.
yes, yes. The scene after that, yes, after Michael breaks out, you see his like really dirty ass feet, and then this trucker pulls in and gets out and is telling like, wash it, don't scratch it. His name is Joe Grizzly. He goes in to use the facilities, use the restroom there or whatever, and he just got done eating like some Mexican food, like a burrito or a taco supreme or like that. And for some reason, Michael will not let him just pass his beast in peace, and starts like knocking on the door nonstop. And he's like trying to tell him, this can be a few minutes because got some issues going on or whatever. And Michael won't stop, leave him alone or whatever. And he gets up and he's like, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch, and like pulls out a knife and like cut this ugly mask off your face or whatever. And Michael just like basically overpowers him, kills him, and ends up like switching out clothes with him. Like great character.
Joe Grizzly was that was one of the best sound bites. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch. Oh my god, dude! If you've ever met Ken Fiore, I met him one time when he was here in my town when we did a horror convention, and he's a big dude. The fact that Michael Myers overpowered him, that was insane. I want to take a minute to discuss like the casting of Tyler Mane. What'd you think of him as Michael Myers, dude?
I think he was really big. The one we're used to seeing as Michael. And Michael usually doesn't have like really long hair, but he looked great for the part. It's not a speaking role, so didn't really need that. But for his movements and the powerfulness and the strength or whatever that he had was awesome. Did a really good job as Michael in this one.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I was shocked that he was gonna play him because when he took over Rufus and Devil's Rejects, and that's how him and Rob Zombie kind of met. And then after Devil's Rejects, when he started doing Halloween, and that's when they announced the call Tyler Mane, I was like, Tyler Mane? And then I looked him up. I'm like, you mean Sabretooth? I'm like, he was Sabretooth in the original X-Men. And
Oh,
it's pretty, yeah, it's crazy because you would think like, oh, okay, like he don't look that big. I mean, because in X-Men, they didn't make him look that big. But when you actually see him like as Michael Myers, like towering over these young girls or towering over Kim Fury, it's like, holy crap, dude. And you actually look at his stats. I think he's like 7'5" or 7'4", and he's like 300 pounds. Another interesting note about Tyler Mane, he used to be a wrestler, right?
no, I did not know that.
Yeah, his name was Big Sky or Sky High or something, but he wrestled in WCW in the 90s, in 1990, 1991.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was like, what? His biggest fame to claim, I think, he was in a match with Kevin Nash, and I think he beat him when Kevin
Oh,
Nash was like starting out. But kind of
yeah,
crazy, like that he was a wrestler before all this?
it makes sense being such a big guy.
Oh, dude, he was huge. I've seen him in person probably once or twice, and I'm not a big dude myself. I'm 5'6", 5'7", and I barely come up to his waist. He's a big guy, dude. And the fact that they did Michael Myers like huge was like you said, they never did it. And the fact that they did it, I think that also played a role into it. Is like he's this big, huge guy, and Michael was never towering. Like you said, he was like maybe 6 foot. But now that you're 7 foot, you got to look up to him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah, he
did
was.
like. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying he was a really big guy in this one. I mean, he could have, it could have been some camera tricks too, that made him look even bigger than he really was. But he definitely looked
Hmm.
huge.
I was thinking that they did some of those, and I think one of the best scenes of the film that I liked it was when he. So the movie where it goes from after he gets the what do you call it, the jumpsuit from Joe Grizzly, he finally makes it home. He sees where he buries the mask inside the old Myers house. Everything that happened in the original with Lori and Linda and Annie, all her friends, how they all went to go like babysit for the Doyle house and all that. That all happened the same way, just a little bit different. But before we get to it, I thought it was cool when he put on the mask for the first time and it shows the wear and tear. That has to be easily one of the best wear and tear looking masks. And I actually like that one better than Halloween 18 as far as the wear and tear. What'd you think?
Yeah, yeah. This one, the mask looked awesome. Like you said, the wear and tear, all that looked really good. One of the better looking masks, I'd say, out of most of the masks.
Yeah, it just all the creases and everything and how it looked a little semi melted. That was pretty cool. I liked it. It's just it was for the time. It just we all fanboyed out in 2007. Oh shit, because we never seen a worn out, torn up like Michael Myers mask, and I think that was kind of like the generation that started that.
Yeah,
But
it was always like a clean kind of mask.
yeah, it was always clean or wet or it was like it just looked too perfect. It just had little scuffs here and there. But this is one of the ones that had that. There was a shot that I really liked when he's like walking around and he's going between the houses because it follows a lot of the original. And Loomis finds out, oh, Michael broke out. Why'd you guys let him out? That kind of thing. So Loomis is going crazy. So it follows a lot of the recipes of the original. Um, but my favorite scene is where this little kid he runs around, then he bumps into Michael and he's looking at him. He goes, "Are you a giant?" And
Yeah,
that I love that scene because this kid was like maybe 3 feet tall, and Michael was like, of course, 7 feet, looking down, and then he does the Michael head tilt, like,
yeah,
oh, dude, that was so classic. They had to keep that in, and of course, the rest of the scenes, they show Linda and Bob. Lori, she's going to go and babysit Tommy Doyle. Then Lindsay comes over. And then Annie goes and messes around with her boyfriend. I thought this was kind of cool because it was different. So he gets to Linda, he gets to Bob, and they were, I guess, screwing around at Michael's house this time instead of the Doyle house. Or what was it,
yeah,
Annie's house? And when he goes to where was it the house that Annie was at, Daniel Harris, he kills the boyfriend and he's gonna kill Annie, but then he doesn't kill Annie. I guess he strangles her. He kills, and then he goes to Lori's house, and they end up killing Lori's parents, which I thought was like, whoa, uh, that was different because in the original you saw the dad. That's all you saw was the dad one time. But the fact that her parents are killed in this, holy shit! Like, I mean, you threw everything out the window with this. So I thought that was cool. But then they kind of, you know, culminated to like the big ending, the finale. You see that Lori, she walked in and was seeing that her friend was killed, and she starts having struggles with Michael. And I guess Dr. Loomis comes in. And this is the thing that also kind of got me was I thought the fact that Michael picked him up and he did the whole head crush thing, and you see Loomis, he falls down. It's like, oh shit, he killed Dr. Loomis. And of course, you find out later that was all bullshit. Uh, but it was just at the time when you're seeing this, like, what? And then they show the whole struggle back and forth with her. And then you end up finding out that they go through the window. And this is kind of well, everybody's going to have an opinion on this ending. They roll around. She thinks Michael's dead. She picks up the revolver that Loomis had, and she is aiming at Michael's head. And if she's aiming at Michael's head, he's just like not moving. Then all of a sudden he moves, and then she shoots him in the head. Then the movie ends with the scream, ah! just zoomed in all around her, kind of like the ending of House of a Thousand Corpses, and that was it. And that was Halloween. That's all she wrote, folks. And honestly, I thought that was a badass movie, dude. It's just more brutal. It gave him a backstory. It didn't follow the cookie cutter same recipe as John Carpenter because it didn't need to be, but he made it so that way one, Michael was a badass, and two, the character development was really good. I mean, he didn't make them as dumb as how they were. He had to modernize it a little bit. But what do you think of the overall movie? I mean, going towards the middle and the ending. I know I'm probably going too fast.
No, no, you're fine. I mean, overall, Michael was like badass. A lot of great characters. It was awesome seeing Danielle Harris again. Because I mean, I really loved it. You know, she was in the like part 4 and 5, and should have been in 6, but she got screwed over on that. We talked about that a while
Yeah,
back. But great seeing her again. Uh, Taylor Scott Compton, she did a great job. Um, shit, what's his name? We had Chucky in this one.
Brad Dourif.
That was really cool. A lot more brutal than the originals, which doesn't really have to have that to make it a good movie, but it just made it, I don't know, to me better. Like it's different. I can't say it's better than the original because I'll never say it's better than the original, not at all. But
It made a
it's just a
statement.
different movie, but just an awesome, awesome movie all around.
Attaboy. See, I tell you, you all got to give Rob Zombie's Halloween a second chance. The whole brutality of it. And no, it didn't need it, but I mean, at the same time, Rob Zombie wasn't dumb. Rob Zombie, he's been around horror films. He's done his own at this time, and he didn't want to do a shot for shot remake because the last horror movie that did a shot for shot remake freaking flopped. Do you remember that what film it was?
What, Psycho?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. With Vince Vaughn, and they filmed it the same way every single scene, and it was just like, why do that? You just basically just modernized the movie in the same way. Nobody cared for that because it was just you're basically swapping out part A for part B, and I
Yeah,
liked I like what Rob Zombie did to this because he made a statement and said, you know what? They gave me full control of what I want to do with Michael, and I love the backstory. I loved how he was brutal. I loved how he was just still like this big, dude. The only thing that I have to argue about with him being played by Tyler Mane, it just the brute killer should have to be saved for Jason. That's my only complaint, honestly. Because Jason was always the big brooding person.
yeah, yeah,
Michael, he was more a little bit slim. He was a little bit thicker side. He was a little bit older. Um, I loved how they combined one and two with this. Now, of course, I said they didn't talk about her being related to Michael. I know Loomis brought that up, but he didn't tell Lori in this. He didn't say, "Oh, Michael's your brother." You find that out later on in the sequel, but they did apply it to the audience and the people watching it that like, "Hey, this is what's going on." They also showed that I thought one of the best cameos too was Sid Haig. He was in this as a graveyard caretaker, and
yeah,
they went to go look at the Judith Myers grave, and he played that role very well because he comes up, he goes, "Goddamn kids on Halloween, they always got to mess with my shit." Ugh. Um, it's it's kind of crazy that Rob Zombie used the same actors for Devil's Rejects, but then he continued to use them in his newer films, and he found roles that just fit them very well. Like Laurie's mom was played by Dee Wallace. I don't know if you caught that,
yeah,
and it's just wow, you have an all-star cast because everybody knows for those who don't know, Dee Wallace, she was famous because she was the cheating wife or the cheating mom off of Cujo, and it's just for us horror fans, we loved it. Like I remember seeing this in theaters the first day, and back in those days, I don't know if you remembered it back in 2007 when this film came out. The big thing that they had was IMAX, right?
yeah,
So if you wanted to see this movie on opening night, you had to wait till midnight of that day. Now they do it like 2 days before, blah 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 blah. But back in 2007, if you wanted to see this movie and be first to see it, you had to see it midnight on August 30th, rolling into August 31st. and the only theaters that have it were the ones that had IMAX. And I'll never forget, I went to go see it, and just the whole atmosphere of just people just like, oh shit, just enjoying it. And you don't have that anymore. Well, not as much anymore, but the fact that now every movie's made and they try to say, oh, let's go see it in 40x when it's not really meant as a 40x film.
Yeah.
Um, IMAX is kind of cool because it's a big screen, you're in the middle of it. They have the RPX where it's around you. I mean, some films are made that way for it, but this film wasn't, and it still did great as an IMAX film. And as a regular film too was good. The runtime on this, I think it was almost about 2 hours. Let me see. Yeah, it was about well, not 2 hours. It's an hour. Well, I guess you could say hour and a half, hour and
Okay.
50 minutes. So not that bad. But that's the theatrical version. Now, if you saw the unrated version, because when this movie was released on DVD, I think in January of 2008, if you bought the DVD, um, this confused the hell out of me, and I'm still upset about this. When I bought the DVD, it said, okay, unrated, and there was two discs. Well, they did this the same way as Devil's Rejects, in the same vein, because Devil's Rejects, you couldn't get the regular version, you had to get unrated, and you had two DVDs. One was the movie, and it was unrated. The second DVD was the whole like documentary from day one when Rob Zombie got the call to say, "Hey, you're gonna do Halloween," to the day that they finished it and premiered it, which I thought was pretty cool. It was like 4 or 5 hours of
Yeah.
footage. Did you ever see that?
No, I never watched that. I've only
See,
seen
like,
the unrated.
oh, dude, you would love the behind the scenes footage, how they were getting people together. Rob Zombie, like, he knows his shit, dude, as far as like a cinematographer, a film director, storyteller. Like, he knows his stuff. It's one of those things where you have to kind of question the passion. And I think Michael Myers, he knew he had to have the passion for it because there's so many hardcore fans out there like us. Um, but it was crazy on the DVD how they had those two versions. And then they had another version that said, okay, theatrical cut, and it just said DVD. And this was at a time that Blu-ray was barely coming out. So you had an unrated DVD that had two discs. You had the rated version on DVD. Then you had a Blu-ray version that had all of them. And I think digital was coming out at the same time. So you had a Blu-ray digital, the DVD that had two versions of it. Um, so there was a lot of different versions. And then I think like when was it? 2 years afterwards, they did like a three disc version when Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 came out, and they did like a small little box set. Um,
Okay.
yeah, they did a lot of footage on this, a lot of promotion. It was a great film. Um, I really enjoyed it. I mean, what'd you think of it overall as far as like how they did the two different versions, unrated, rated? Do you think it was cool that he followed the same vein as Devil's Rejects? It's basically Devil's Rejects just with Halloween title over it. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see that. Like I said, I never saw the theatrical version or whatever. I've
Hmm.
only seen the unrated version. For the unrated, it was fucking like a crazy, much more brutal type movie than the original ever was. Which I enjoyed that, but I love blood and gore and all that, so more my thing. So I loved it overall. To me, it was a great movie. Um, if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. And if you have, and you are just always just hated it because it wasn't like the original, remake shouldn't be like the original. I mean, it's not supposed to be.
Yep.
So, I mean, he did what he was supposed to do, and I mean, not everybody's gonna like it, but if you haven't already seen it, definitely check it out.
Oh yeah, dude. And it's one of those things where you're gonna have a lot of people that are, and we've talked about it too. We've talked about various different remakes. And don't get me wrong, not every remake could be great. I mean, there's a few of them like, Night of the Living Dead. I would go as far as saying I actually like the remake of Jason, and I think we all do. I mean, I know you guys give shit for the new Nightmare on Elm Street, but I like that one. I know KC wasn't a big fan of that one. Um, Texas Chainsaw, that was a decent remake. But the thing is, when they advertised this, they said from the visionary mind of Rob Zombie. So you have to kind of go in knowing it's Rob Zombie's take on Michael Myers. And granted, it's a reimagination of a original classic. But what was cool about this in 2007, when they did this remake, they pretty much opened the door for like the newer generations to come in. Because think about it, 2007, that was what, 18 years ago almost. Wait, 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4. No, 17 years ago. Almost, yeah, almost 18 years ago. It is ridiculous to think like, wow, I remember this like it was yesterday when it came out because I was there in theaters when I saw it. But almost 17 years and it's still kind of a love-hate thing. I mean, out of the rating, I would give this for a remake out of the what do we do it? We do it out of 5 stars or 10 stars?
I do it out of 10.
You do it out of 10? Shit, I gotta give this one, honestly, I'm gonna give it one of my highest. As far as a remake, I'm gonna go 10. I'm gonna give this a 10 star. And I've never give any remake a 10 star, but this one was badass because we didn't even talk about everything with the mask, but I'm gonna throw out there it had a great mask, um, great story, still canon. If this was one and done and they didn't do a sequel, I'd be happy with that. But what's your rating on it, buddy?
This one, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Almost completely perfect movie. Great acting. The kills were very brutal. Gets much more brutal. Yeah, but uh, this one overall, great movie, great acting. Loved pretty much everything about it. There really wasn't anything bad to say about it. I mean, it was a little more trashy than the original, but you're gonna see that in a Rob Zombie film. It's what's expected. If you've ever seen anything Rob Zombie, you just kind of know it's what's gonna happen. But yeah, overall, like like it couldn't get much better than it was.
You bring up two good points. Before I jump in and ask you about the mask again, you said trashy, and Rob Zombie, he's known for having trashy shit in his movies, and that's okay. This one, it was a little trashy in a sense because it did show boobs, it did show nudity, it did show naked butt. The original, of course, didn't. And
There's some,
yeah, Rob, there was what?
I think there's some bush in this movie too.
He said there was bush. As long as like what Slink says, oh, he's showing pickle. If we don't see pickle, we're good, dude. We're good. This was a good film. I mean, of course you're gonna have some nudity in there. It's Rob Zombie. He's always gonna have some nudity in there. There's movies that have nothing to do with nudity, and he still throws it in there, like Lords of Salem. That was the one that you didn't think that you see naked women, but you did. Um, you know, I that's why I was kind of laughing. Some people, somebody told me one time when I was on SaWGuy podcast and I was talking about the Halloween episode and I was talking about the remake. Somebody had told me, they said, well, if you like classic horror, you watch Halloween. If you're into the Jerry Springer style of horror films, then you watch the Rob Zombie version. So, I mean, that's the best way to describe it. But I mean, honestly, if you haven't seen it, give this one another shot. They play it all the time during Halloween on AMC Movie Fest. They play Rob Zombie's version, then the original, and mix it all up between all of them. But this one has its place. It really does. Um, but to finish this off, we have to discuss the mask because I know we barely touched it. This, out of all the masks ranked, I have to say, Resurrection's still my favorite. This one is a close second for me because I love the wear and tear, the way it was designed. The only thing I didn't like is just his eye holes were a little bit bigger, and you got to see his eyes in some shots, and then some of them they were blacked out. The hair was perfect, I think, because it was just wild. And depending on the kill scenes, it stood up or stand down. It didn't have a shape like a pompadour and stuck. Um, and you kind of see that wear and tear kind of follow up through the sequel. I mean, what's your take on that? And if you had to rank all the masks, where does this one rank?
I was ranking of masks. I'd say it's one of the best. I'd say out of all the masks.
Damn.
Just because it's like before when you see Michael and it's so clean cut, it looks like it ain't never been touched. But then you see this Michael, and it looks like you got this crazy motherfucker going to come after you and is going to kill you. There's like looks like you've been through some shit. Like it just I don't know, just like more there's more feel there, like more fear than just a plain white mask. It's still the white mask, but it's got so much like wear and tear and everything on it that just looks like he's done some shit or been through some shit and get away from that guy.
Damn. So if you had to rank this, you're gonna call it is your top mask. It's in your top three for sure. Is it your top?
Yeah, it's in like at least the top three.
Damn. Okay. See, that's all I need to know. I'm glad we're on the same page on that because this match was badass. I'm excited because we got to finally break down the whole Rob Zombie version, the first one. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you guys feel about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. We are going to discuss about that one, right, Casey?
Yeah, that one's coming up next.
Yeah. So y'all stay tuned. We're gonna have that one up for you. In the meantime, though, go watch Halloween 1, Rob Zombie's take on it, because this is amazing. And I don't know about you, man, but fuck it, let's go watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.